Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching this. My name is Anastasia Pacella with the Cordial Eye, and we're talking to Naomi Even-Aberle. She's a visual artist and martial artist in South Dakota, and this summer she participated in our Residency Enjoy. Naomi, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. I'm really excited. And I'm also super thankful that you're willing to do this pretty late around my crazy schedule.
Like we said, this actually works better because now my kids won't run in. So I also appreciate it. So what, oh my God, all of my questions are totally gone. What made you want to apply to the Residency Enjoy this summer?
So the application process was inspired by two things. One, I am lucky enough that I got to go to school with Anastasia, this amazing artist, and knowing that you were starting an adventure as an artist and doing a digital residency, I wanted to support that. But also because as an artist myself, being tied to a geography and a community sometimes makes it hard to just get up and go do a 3 or 6 month residency. So virtual residencies are something that I'm very interested in because I can continue to work in the community that I live, but still make art and engage with artists outside of that. So that really was like sort of selfishly and then like community driven in terms of like why I was inspired to apply for the actual residency itself.
Yeah, that's been one of the like bright sides of the coronavirus pandemic is that we've all had to force, like it's kind of been that necessary force to make us think, why do we do things the way that we do?
Mm-hmm.
And I know as a parent, I also can't go and do residencies. So it's like, whoa, the whole world is open now in a way that's really exciting.
I agree. And it's also it's a really interesting time to say, why not? Well, why not do it this way? Or why not try something and see if it works? And if it doesn't, then it's okay. So I feel like the experimentation in terms of how residencies work, what the topics are, and just the accessibility for people applying has like completely been leveraged during this time to the benefit to artists, I think.
Yeah, totally. So the topic this summer was the Residency Enjoy during arguably one of the most difficult times in the United States.
Yes.
How did you approach this?
So this was actually the hardest part of my application because I don't like when I saw, okay, in like full transparency, I saw the theme and I was like, that's dumb. I don't want to do something with that, but I want to do a residency. So then I remembered being in undergrad, and one of my professors said, it doesn't matter which project your professor gives you. You should be able to look at any topic and figure out an avenue on which it speaks to you and make work from that. So as a martial artist, some of the things that I'm really interested in is how some of the processes and the training techniques that we go through, when we tell people, a lot of times they'll be like, why? I don't get it. Or that puts you in pain. Why would you do that? So I started thinking about joy as something that is created at the end of a process. But we have a tendency to sort of flatten it and create a stereotypical approach and understanding of joy. So like joy is eating your favorite ice cream. Joy is seeing a beautiful rainbow after a storm, right? These are these tiny moments. But for me, I started looking at joy as like a habit. And typically, habits are very hard to form. They're a lot of work. So I really liked this juxtaposition of saying, well, actually, joy is freaking hard to do. And it's hard to build and it's hard to maintain. Here's a practice as a martial artist that I'm engaged with that shows all of the work behind the joy. And in fact, the joy is usually the transparent thing that you don't see at the end. All you see is the hard work. And then only I'll really know that there's joy at the end of that work.
Oh my God. There's like so much to that. Like absolutely joy making is a habit. I know it comes more easily to some, and it's a lot of work it's a lot of work for me. I get caught up in the downers sometimes.
It is, and it's sometimes easier to just be like, yep, I'm just going to look at chocolate as joy because I don't have to put as much effort into that. Um, and not to say that chocolate can't be joyful for you, like, because it
Right.
can be. But that's like an instantaneous joy. That's not a habitual joy, and that's not a practice that you can come back to and invest in. I mean, because I think if we as artists look at like people and humanity and behavior and we say we want to be happy, we want to be joyful, well, that means that joy needs to happen more often than not, and things only happen more often than not if we're investing in them.
I feel like I'm getting told by you right now.
I mean, no one's perfect, but like these are the thoughts that I think sometimes art allows you to have in a way that you don't do otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. So not only are you an artist, you also run a martial arts gym. And so this like discipline is something that you do for yourself and, with your students all the time. Do you want to talk more about how that comes into your art too? Or your visual art? They're both art. But
yeah. So I'm actually in my martial arts studio right now. So like I'm in our lobby. This is like our front desk workspace. And literally probably 10 feet to me is an adults Hapkido class that's running right now that my husband and training partner is leading. So it just so happened that this happened to be the space partly because of timing. Like I was here and I didn't have time to run home. So I was like, we're doing it. But I think in the long run, we grow up with this perception of what being an artist is. Whether we agree with it or not, to an extent, we buy into it. And so I was always a child that like drew on paper and I would like pick flowers and weave them in the fences because why not? But I believed an artist was someone who like made things, paintings, collages. Like you had to make something and it had to be a traditional piece of art. And I was never really great at that. And so I never really felt like an artist. But I was always really athletic. I was always engaged in thinking about how people came together. And when I was in grad school, I had some amazing friends who were like, well, why isn't that art? Who says it's not? And so I started to unapologetically look at all of the aspects of my life that I felt were creative in some form, even if that form was like non-traditional and I didn't have the words to describe it. So at a certain point, I said, I'm a visual artist because I like all this visual stuff. Like I do draw, I do paint, I do video, but I'm also a martial artist. And that means understanding the body and how the body moves, but then also thinking about how you build relationships and how you build culture as part of an art practice. So for me, my goal in all of my artwork, whether it's creating a visual painting, photography, or video, or working and running a martial arts studio, is to create work, conversation, and research inspired by the martial arts culture and philosophy and movements in order to perpetuate personal growth. Like that's the goal. So that sounds really fancy. What the heck does that mean?
yes.
It means the martial arts is so important to me as a co-collaborative built culture, which means people that come into it affect it just as much as I do. And it's looking at creating something collaboratively. So when I create work about the martial arts, I'm taking inspiration from all the other practitioners. And we do that in visual arts as well. You think about a traditional like master study. You might look at a Van Gogh painting and try to replicate it because you're trying to learn from that master. It's the same thing in the martial arts. You are a white belt, you learn from a black belt, right? So you're trying to replicate what a master does. And that form of teaching, that like pedagogical approach to education is what we do in the martial arts and the visual arts across the board. So I look at everything that fits in the martial arts, movements, ideas, colors, culture, language, and I look at it and say, these are all components that I can pull out and make artwork with if I want to. So I basically just gave myself permission to play and not put a boundary between where my studio is. My studio is wherever I'm at. So then I can create with anything.
That's so brilliant.
And liberating, because then, like, who's going to tell me no?
Right? Oh my gosh. Yes. That's so wonderful hearing you just take charge and take ownership. I don't really see anybody telling you no anyways.
Well, I mean, and it's more that people won't say no, but they have a hard time wrapping their minds around it.
Right.
Because if you think back to that like mentor idea, you do something that you've seen before, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. When you see something that's new, we don't know how to categorize it. So a lot of my time as an artist is spent explaining why martial arts and visual arts are actually the same thing. The martial arts are just the inspiration for the themes and the concepts that I'm exploring.
Right.
It's like the filter through which my work is created.
Yeah, I can totally see that. So this seems like a perfect time to segue into actually sharing the work that you made during the residency, because you were really pulling from your martial arts practice and thinking about joy as a habit, mm-hmm. And applying that also to your domestic space. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you created this series of images that were both created in your martial arts gym, like this one, and then also at home doing your training tasks at the gym and like domestic chores, like sweeping and folding laundry and washing dishes. What do you want to what do you want to tell us about this series?
Yeah. So I used a strategy where you take an environment that is comfortable. So all of us have a home of some kind. We generally can all connect with washing dishes, folding laundry, sweeping the floor, right? So these are usually things that are considered chores because it's a chore to do them, right? It's not fun. Nobody really wants to, but they're things that have to be done. So that way we can engage with our environment in an organized, clean, and efficient way, right?
Right.
So I wanted to find a way to trace a path of process building or creating a habit in an environment that is abnormal for a lot of people. So like the picture that's up right now, I'm working on fingertip push-ups. If I tell someone that I'm working on they do that. They go, why? Because that's not a space that's super familiar to you. It's not a process that is in your world, right?
Right.
Not that you don't exist, but it's not part of your world. So I wanted to take the unfamiliar and pair it with the extremely familiar to start providing a bridge between the two to show that really the underlying concept is the same. You're going to do something you don't like to build a habit and create goals and a space that you want to inhabit. So dishes. I hate doing dishes. Like I absolutely hate it. I don't like when my fingers get so wrinkly. This like tactile feeling bothers me. But I love when my kitchen is really clean and everything's put together. I feel so restful because I put the time in and I have the result.
Right.
I don't like fingertip push-ups because they hurt and I'm not good at them. And they make my hands hurt for a while. But I do like when I can get to a point where I can do 10 in a row when it was really hard for me to even do one for like 3 months. So like that process of coming back to something can in itself create space that I can find joyful. So I can find joy in the moments that are uncomfortable because I know they lead to something comfortable.
Right.
So that was the idea.
So wise.
Yeah, that was the idea behind the two worlds, right? Something you know, something you don't know, and to show the similarity between the two.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to give like a shout out to our viewers. We've got some people who are equally amazed at the idea of finger push-ups as I am.
I'm not that good. Like, I'm still working on it.
I struggle with push-ups, and
Okay.
sometimes I can get into a space where I'm like, yes, I feel good when I'm exercising on a regular basis, and I will do this even though I don't like it. And other times I don't.
Don't worry. Me too. Me too.
So, yeah. So you have, this is punching sand. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of the martial arts, the thing that in that culture that is usually so surprising to people that aren't a part of that culture is this concept of conditioning. It's where you're going to purposely put your muscles, your tendons, your bone, and your skin in repeat tension and like course actions, because over time you can build up calluses, you can build muscle density and bone density, which means you can take harder hits, you can throw harder hits, which is important in self-defense. But it starts little, like, so you start by, like this is considered like a panther, where you hit with the front of your knuckles. It's really difficult because most people's fingers are not the same. Like your middle finger is usually a little bit longer. So there's not a lot of padding. So one of the techniques is to punch sand repeatedly, nice and slow. And then as you slowly build the conditioning, you can hit harder and harder. And so these are repeat actions. A habit is built by repeating things. So then I started to look at like the shapes that I was making with my hands in the gym and how those shapes were mimicked at home. So like, I don't think I have the image here, but there's one where I'm like reaching into the laundry basket to pull out a shirt to put it away.
Yeah.
And so hands are like in the same position.
That one's on the website, and the laundry basket is also a circle.
Yeah. Yep. So trying to like frame these moments in a way that like, that could be your laundry basket. Maybe you're just getting really good at reaching in and grabbing stuff out. And in fact, there's a whole like series of techniques from the 1960s called housewife techniques. And they're all like self-defense techniques around grabbing something in the house that a housewife would have, like a frying pan, a rolling pin, a broom, a laundry basket. So historically, I thought that was just kind of funny, and I did like a little nod to it.
That is really cool, actually. And like historically, these nods too, you have this bright red nail polish on, which is so iconic.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of times as female identifying in the martial arts, there's a little bit of a challenge to that. The martial arts at its core are about the smaller, perceived weaker person being able to take on someone bigger. It doesn't matter if you're man or woman. It's equalizing, right? Because it's not about the stronger person. It's about the smarter person. However, the martial arts is like an Eastern philosophy being brought over, has been westernized. There's a lot of patriarchal lines that have kind of come into the martial arts. So being a martial artist in America and female, there are moments where I run up against, like I've had students come in that are like military, and they look at me and they're like, why am I learning from this tiny little woman, right? And so I just smile and I laugh and I giggle, and then I wait for them to grab me, and then I put them in a lock, right? And then they're like, oh, okay. So I didn't want to erase the fact that I am female. I am strong, and I can have these aspects of like appearance, painted fingernails. I can have tattoos. Like I can have all of those things and still be a martial artist, still be feminine, and still be masculine, and I can weave between the two. It shouldn't matter.
I love that. Right. And then when we're seeing, you know, the domestic tasks, and you have your harsher tattoos, and you can still see like your arms are strong, even though we really can't see them that well. It's still very clear in that way. And so you took these images of you being disciplined, and not only do they visually correlate, but you really even thought about what kind of muscle groups am I using, what kind of movement am I going through while I'm sweeping, and what martial art practice does that relate to, which I just thought was super interesting. And how they're grouped here as like little journal entries was how I read them, how I interpreted them.
Yeah, I originally was just going to do images. And the one thing that this residency did a really great job of is we had a lot of check-ins with a lot of the other artists, and we could show them work, we could talk about it, we could get feedback. And for me, the images were powerful, but because some of the images are coming from like an environment that people weren't familiar with, they weren't always read in the way that I wanted them to be. So I started to play around with trying to match the hand movements, the muscle groups. You can see like in some cases, like in the one that's up now with my hands on the bricks, you can see that there's indentations across my hands from where my hands were on the bricks. And then when you look at my hand that's sweeping up the dog hair, like you can see the tendons standing out from the way I have to hold the broom. So I was really trying to connect the visual work in the hand, but then also stepping back and saying, when we're doing tasks, I have thoughts that are running through my head, cursing out the dogs for shedding so much, or, you know, whatever it is, like little thoughts. And my feedback that I got from the group was that maybe you should share some of those thoughts, because sometimes this isn't pretty, and it's okay to acknowledge that, like, I love my dogs, but I hate how much they shed. Right. I want to be better at push-ups, but I hate that I have to do push-ups on bricks because they make my hands hurt. I don't like it.
Right. Oh my gosh.
So very good journal entry. And I tried to be kind of cheeky and like very abrasively honest, because when you think internally, you don't.
Right. Those are just all the thoughts. And then when we speak out loud, they go through that frontal lobe that says you can't say that out loud. So you've given us this. But I think it's really beautiful. It's, you know, it's really well designed. It's a definitely a challenge sometimes as an artist to have that like line of, do I tell people what I'm thinking, or do I let them come to that conclusion themselves? But I think it's handled very elegantly in this series.
Oh, thank you. I always, and you'll know exactly who I'm talking about when I say this, but I always try to have 3 key words. So, because the audience question is so important, right? What do you want your audience to get? So my goal is, if I have 3 words for a piece of work or a series, and the audience can get one of those 3, then I did my job, because they're at least in the ballpark of what I want them to get from it. And the rest is going to be influenced by their own experiences, which is also just as amazing. So I have to have the words focused enough that someone can get there, and then they can, you know, travel the rest of the way on their own.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. So, do you find yourself still practicing joy? Have you moved on to different practice?
I think the practice of joy is still there, embedded within just like my daily habits. I don't know if I would say like, yes, I'm practicing joy anymore. So intentionally, because it was very much tied to the artwork. But I have realized that certain mundane tasks that in the like larger picture don't always seem important, sometimes are. So like one thing that I did when I was working on this project is I would come home from work for lunch, and I will eat lunch and I'll read 4 pages of whatever book I'm on, and then I'll do the dishes. And it takes up more time at lunch for me. But then when I get home and my husband is home, we have more time to hang out at home because I'm not spending another hour on dishes. So like sometimes just rearranging my schedule and knowing which times are more precious to me. So then which tasks do I need to get done in order to have that reward I want? That has become a lot more flexible for me to sort of move those things around.
Right. Oh, that's so wonderful. I am so impressed with how disciplined you are in all like so many areas of your life. It's something I really admire and a little bit jealous of.
I mean, I'm so glad you feel that way because some days it does not feel that way to me.
I'm sure. I'm sure. All right. I had wanted to come up with like 3 speed dating questions to ask Naomi, and they're escaping me right now, but I'm going to do my best. So, Naomi, would you please tell our viewers what is something that really like makes your skin crawl?
Oh, okay. I don't know if you've ever tried these, but Szechuan peppers just make my skin crawl. They're a pepper that's really common in like Chinese or East Asian dishes. And the pepper actually has like kind of a tingly, numbing effect on your tongue. And there's a really small percentage of the population that when you eat it, it makes your mouth and all your taste buds feel like you're eating Dawn dish soap. I happen to be one of those soap people. So if anybody tells me that these peppers are in my food, I just am like, oh, gross. Because all I can think about is the one and only time I've eaten them. And I felt like I ate dish soap.
Like in your, it feels, it doesn't just taste like it feels.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, you know, when you put peppermint on because the menthol is like a cooling agent, it reacts with your skin differently. The same thing happens with this pepper. You put it in your mouth and it starts to get hot, but then there's this weird cooling sensation because of how it's engaging with the molecular structure of your tongue, right? And so it's both hot and cold, and so like you don't have the same sense of touch with your tongue. So then as you're eating things, it's like this weird texture. I don't know. I don't like it at all.
That sounds really wild, and I definitely want to try it. And I can be understanding of like, wow, that's really a strange experience. If you are a soap, not even soap taster, like that's how I would refer it. Like cilantro tastes like soap to some people, but soap experiencer.
You have to have a whole new channel on this now. People.
All right. Question number 2. What makes you so super duper excited that you like squeal?
Okay. So one of my all-time favorite things is, so my partner and I have like completely different tastes pretty much across the board on everything. Music, TV, whatever. So like my favorite thing is when I'm having a stressful day and he's picked up on it and I come home and he wants to watch Golden Girls with me, which is like my jam. It's my go-to. I'll have it in the background. Bad day, good day, Golden Girls is on. So like I love when he's just like, okay, I'll take a hit for the team and I'll watch the Golden Girls.
Aww. That's so sweet. Okay, and then silliest, you're a dog mom. What's your silliest dog mom story?
Oh, silly. Okay. So it's silly in a weird, gross, all dog parents will understand this. Our very first puppy, his name is Zuko. He's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. And he's like really shy and quiet. We got them this like sock monkey when he was a puppy, and he took it everywhere with him. He'd chew on it, he'd hang out. And one day we took him outside to go to the bathroom, and my husband is standing there and he goes, oh no. And he looks over, and Zuko had a sock monkey arm sticking out his butt because he had eaten his sock monkey.
Oh.
Then we had to pull the sock monkey out. So totally a gross story, but also kind of like funny because we were like, this sock monkey, we don't know where it went. Oh, well, now we do.
Oh, no.
So,
yep. Yes. That was a good one. Thank you, Naomi.
You're welcome.
All right. So, in addition to just being like an amazing artist and running a martial arts studio and the 100 other things Naomi's doing, she also has an art gallery that she runs called the Kitchen Sink Project, and you can find more about that on her website here. Is there anything you wanted to leave our audience with? Any words of wisdom or what have you?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that I would encourage anybody that sees themselves as creative in any aspect is, just because you haven't seen something happen the way that you want it to happen doesn't mean it can't be done that way. So challenge yourself to be unapologetic about how you want to create, because inevitably there's somebody else that also wants to do it, and they're just waiting for that one person to be brave enough to step up and say, yep, this is me, this is how I am.
Oh my God. If I was watching this at home, I'd be crying, but here I am on the camera and I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Naomi. And if you have been watching along, thank you so much for watching this. You can find more of these videos with other resident artists on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, as well as at thecordiali.org. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks.